Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating collection of essays from top bloggers to explore what life balance actually means in our frantic modern world. This compilation, put together by Stacey Hoffer Weckstein, is an absolute goldmine of insights. Look, we all know that balancing the demands of work, family, and personal growth can feel like this impossible juggling act, right? But instead of just giving you another generic list of time-saving hacks, we're going to dig into the very foundation of how we view our lives. We'll explore some powerful metaphors and frameworks that literally shift the paradigm of what it means to live a truly balanced life.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll be moving through 6 key areas: the illusion of time, shattering the equal myth, frameworks for true balance, a great story called The Mexican Fisherman, the seesaw metaphor, and finally, making deliberate choices. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the illusion of time, overworked and overwhelmed. Blogger Shamel tells this story that honestly hits the nail on the head for our modern condition. She was just running out to grab some groceries, bumped into her neighbor, and asked that standard, polite question we all ask, "Hey, how are you?" She was totally expecting the usual, "Fine, thanks," but instead, he just sighs heavily and goes, "Overworked and overwhelmed." I mean, think about that for a second. How often is that our own internal, or even external response? We live in a world where we're constantly being tugged at by our cell phones, our jobs, our families. We're just constantly feeling like there is never enough time to do what we need to do, let alone what we actually want to do.
But here is where we get a major paradigm shift. Shamel argues that our obsession with time management is actually leading us totally astray. Because, think about it, nobody gets more than 24 hours in a day, right? No amount of wishing or aggressive color coding of your calendar is going to change that basic physical reality. Focusing purely on time management just makes us obsessed with the clock. Instead, she introduces this concept of choice management. Living a balanced life isn't about cramming more into your busy day, it's about actively integrating the things that are truly important to you and deciding what simply has to come first. In a lot of ways, we're too busy because we choose to be.
Which brings us to Section 2, shattering the equal myth. Myths about balancing.
Blogger Avani Mehta expertly shatters a few of these common myths that end up causing us so much unnecessary frustration. The first massive myth is that balance means equal. We kind of get trapped into thinking we need to slice our day into perfectly equal fractions. 8 hours for work, 8 for sleep, 8 for play. But life just doesn't work that way. Balance is actually about tapping into your inner wisdom to give each area the attention it requires in that specific moment. The second myth is that there's some magic, universal balancing formula out there. We're all unique, so copy-pasting someone else's daily routine just isn't going to work for you. And the third myth, that balance is isolated only to you. We live in an interdependent world. If your partner or your sibling's life is totally off the rails, it's going to impact yours. Balance is dynamic, guys. It's not a rigid math equation.
Moving right along to Section 3, frameworks for true balance, pyramids and tables.
So if it's not a math equation, what is it? Well, blogger Lance offers this great concept called the personal pyramid. The foundation here is made up of your body, mind, and spirit. So that's the physical body and its needs, the mind and our emotional needs, and the spirit, which is where we find deep meaning. Lance points out that true abundance comes from aligning our daily activities with the specific underlying needs of those 3 areas. When we feel all jumbled up, it's usually because we're spending time on things that don't actually align with what our body, mind, or spirit need right then. Your pyramid is deeply personal, and keeping it strong requires some really profound introspection.
Now, taking a slightly different angle, Alex Shulman visualizes life as a 10-legged table. He splits life into personal growth elements, like health, education, and character, and external elements, like your career, social life, and family. And here's the brilliant part of Alex's metaphor. It is practically impossible to have a perfectly balanced table at all times. But if most of your legs are strong, they can totally support a temporary weakness in another area. For instance, if your finances take a hit and that leg gets a bit wobbly, your strong character, good health, and solid daily habits are going to keep the whole table standing. You don't just collapse because one single area is struggling. All right, let's look at Section 4, the Mexican Fisherman, contentment versus cash.
This is a classic parable shared by Evelyn Lim, and it is just so good. In the story, an American business professor is vacationing in a quiet Mexican fishing village. He spots a local fisherman docking really early in the day with just a small catch. So the professor asks why he doesn't stay out longer to catch more fish. The fisherman replies that he has enough to feed his family, and now he's just going to take a siesta, play with his kids, and drink tequila with his friends in the evening. Horrified by this total lack of hustle, the professor lays out this massive business plan.
work longer hours, buy a fleet of boats, move to LA, take the company public, and make millions. To which the fisherman simply asks, "But, Senor Professor, what can a person do after getting millions of dollars?"
And get this, the American professor, totally taken aback, quickly fires off his answer. He says, well, with all that dough, you can retire. You can buy a little villa, sleep in, fish a little, play with your kids, and drink tequila with friends in the evening. The immense irony here, which the fisherman ever so politely points out to the stunned professor, is that he is already living this exact life of relaxation and family time. He literally bypassed decades of corporate stress to arrive at the exact destination the professor is pitching.
This story really forces us to hit pause and ask ourselves a genuinely hard question: contentment or cash? Are we sacrificing our present joy to buy a future that we could actually be living right now? Evelyn Lim points out that, yeah, realistically, we need cash to afford our basic necessities and then some, but we absolutely shouldn't delay our happiness. Contentment is found right now, in the present. You don't necessarily have to get materially rich first before you grant yourself permission to feel happy and balanced.
That leads us perfectly into Section 5, the seesaw metaphor, riding the ups and downs.
Blogger Stacey Shipman compares life balance to a childhood seesaw. Think back to when you were a kid. She and her friend would sometimes try to perfectly balance the seesaw, suspending it midair so neither of them touched the ground. But doing that was incredibly frustrating, forced, and honestly just exhausting. They'd always quickly give up and go back to just pushing off the ground and gliding up and down. As adults, we do this all the time. We try to force our lives into that rigid, perfectly suspended center point, and it just creates immense tension. Shipman suggests that true balance is about letting it flow. We have to accept the natural ups and downs, the really busy times and the slow times. When we stop fighting that natural ebb and flow and just ride the waves, we experience so much more ease and alignment.
Finally, Section 6, making deliberate choices, reclaiming your time.
Returning to Avani Mehta's insights, here are 3 absolutely critical steps to stand up for yourself so you aren't just constantly reacting to everyone else's expectations. Number 1, be decisive. Seriously, don't let anyone else make decisions for you. Nobody understands your priorities like you do. Number 2, say no. This is arguably the most important word in your vocabulary if you want to separate the essentials from the non-essentials. People who are too nice rarely say no, and they usually end up drowning in commitments. And number 3, take responsibility. External forces are always going to try to dictate your schedule, but you have to keep the power over your own life. Without taking the responsibility to constantly steer your own ship, a balanced life is just impossible.
As Stacey Hoffer Weckstein notes in her introduction to this awesome compilation, balance is a journey, not a destination. But the real question you have to ask is, whose journey are you actually on? Are you meticulously building your own personal pyramid, or are you just running out the clock on someone else's treadmill? Perfect equilibrium is an illusion, guys, so let's stop trying to force the seesaw to hover midair. So I'll leave you with this. What does life balance actually mean to you, and what non-essential are you going to say no to today to reclaim your time?